Lisa still remembered the day she exchanged vows with Adam beneath a canopy of white roses and bright summer sky. Friends and family gathered around, applauding them as the perfect couple, the inseparable pair who had conquered every obstacle to be together. The sweet aroma of lilies, mingling with the distant sound of a live string quartet, marked the moment they both said, "I do." It was all the more meaningful because, for years, Lisa had believed she would never find a love like this. Adam wasn't just the charming, confident man who swept her off her feet. He was her best friend. They had met in college, but it wasn't until senior year that they truly became close. Late-night study sessions turned into laughter-filled dinners, which then blossomed into confessions of love near the campus fountain. Lisa was smitten by Adam's ambition, his drive to succeed in the financial sector. Meanwhile, Adam adored Lisa's creativity. She had this innate ability to transform bare spaces into cozy sanctuaries, a skill that would later propel her career as an interior designer. Standing before that floral archway on their wedding day, Lisa felt the world come to a standstill. She remembered Adam gently squeezing her hand, reassuring her that this was the first day of a long, joy-filled life together. Their vows, meticulously written in the weeks prior, highlighted promises of loyalty, shared dreams, and unwavering support. Friends couldn't stop gushing about how the newlyweds radiated happiness, as though their bond was forged by destiny itself. The honeymoon phase lived up to its promises. After the wedding, they traveled to an exotic island in the Caribbean for 2 blissful weeks. They woke up to warm, sunlit beaches, spent their afternoons exploring vibrant coral reefs, and ended their evenings with romantic dinners under star-filled skies. In those moments, Lisa believed wholeheartedly that they were building a life story that would defy all odds. But as soon as they returned to the bustle of everyday life, subtle changes began to surface. Small shifts in Adam's routine, fleeting, moments that Lisa initially dismissed as normal work pressure. Adam had secured a highly competitive role at a prestigious financial firm right after the honeymoon. His office was located in a sleek downtown skyscraper, where the corporate environment thrived on intense deadlines and after-hours social events. Eager to prove himself to senior partners, Adam immersed himself in the job, often leaving home before dawn and returning well after midnight. Lisa was proud of him, at first. She knew how important career advancement was to Adam, and she did her best to be a supportive spouse. Although the hours weighed on her, she poured her energy into her own passion, interior design. With new projects piling up, she found solace in color palettes, furniture layouts, and creative concepts for her growing list of clients. She, too, had dreams. She wanted to open her own design studio, eventually establishing a brand name that catered to upscale residences. Their apartment on Cedar Street became more of a sleeping space than a home, a testament to their separate ambitions. Lisa would often leave sketches pinned to the refrigerator door in the morning, little notes about paint swatches and prospective design ideas, hoping Adam might comment by the time he got home. But more often than not, she would find those same notes untouched, as if Adam hadn't even noticed them. He'd stumble in past midnight, exhausted, sometimes slightly tipsy from schmoozing with clients at high-end bars. One chilly evening, Lisa prepared a late dinner in anticipation of Adam's return, complete with candles and soft jazz playing in the background. She wanted to recapture the intimacy they'd briefly experienced on their honeymoon. Instead, Adam texted an hour before, mentioning that an urgent client meeting had come up and he'd be home well after 1 a.m. Disappointed, Lisa sat at the dining table, quietly picking at her meal. She wondered if this was the new normal. Unkept. Promises, lonely nights, and an ever-widening distance. Their conversations, once light-hearted and playful, took on a stilted quality. Lisa noticed Adam barely asked about her design projects anymore. He seemed either distracted or perpetually on edge, glancing at his phone every few minutes as if awaiting a crucial message. When Lisa tried to engage him about married life or suggest they go on a weekend getaway, he brushed her off, citing work obligations. Still, Lisa clung to hope. She believed that marriages go through phases, and this was just a rough patch, nothing they couldn't survive. After all, they had sworn to stand by each other in good times and in bad. Her optimism refused to buckle, even when she overheard Adam whispering on phone calls at odd hours, speaking in hushed, urgent tones. Weeks stretched into months. One afternoon, Lisa discovered an unfamiliar perfume wafting from Adam's blazer pocket. It wasn't hers, and it certainly wasn't the generic scent of a department store. This aroma was subtle, elegant, almost mesmerizing, yet entirely foreign. A seed of doubt sprouted in her mind, but she tried to rationalize it away. Maybe it's from a crowded elevator or a coworker who leaned in too close, she told herself. But as the days wore on, more and more signs cropped up. Late-night texts Adam claimed were from work colleagues, a couple of suspicious restaurant receipts for two, and fleeting glimpses of him smiling at messages on his phone. Lisa felt an uneasy knot tightening in her stomach. Whenever she asked even the most benign questions, Adam grew defensive, insisting she was overreacting. One Friday evening, Lisa came home early from a client meeting, hoping to surprise Adam with a homemade dinner. Yet the apartment was dark and empty. Feeling restless, she decided to tidy up the living room and accidentally knocked Adam's laptop off the coffee table. As she picked it up, the screen flickered awake, revealing an open email thread that made her heart pound. The subject read, "Can't wait to see you tonight." The messages were explicit and intimate, punctuated with heart emojis and inside jokes she'd never heard before. There was no doubt these emails were from another woman, a coworker named Sabrina, who wrote about how thrilling it was to finally have alone time without the nagging wife around. Lisa felt a wave of heat rush through her cheeks, followed by an icy chill in her core. Her mind buzzed with shock, betrayal, and the horrifying realization that Adam, her Adam, had methodically orchestrated a double life. He had broken their vows, the very promises they had once treasured so deeply. For several minutes, she just stood there, trembling, tears pricking her eyes. She wanted to scream, to confront him, to call Sabrina and unleash a tirade of rage. But in that frozen moment, a different emotion crystallized within her. A cold, precise fury that demanded not just confrontation, but retribution. Lisa carefully set Adam's laptop back on the table, closed her eyes, and took a deep breath. She thought about all the nights she had waited for him, all the phone calls he'd cut short, all the excuses he'd spun about client dinners. Anger churned inside her, but she wrestled it into a sense of grim determination. If he had shattered their marriage vows so carelessly, she would make him pay in a way he'd never forget. That night, Adam didn't return until almost 2 a.m. By then, Lisa had wiped away any trace of tears and forced herself to act as though nothing was amiss. She greeted him with a lukewarm smile, quietly noting the lipstick stain on his collar that he hadn't bothered to hide. Her heart clenched at the sight, but she suppressed the pain, focusing instead on the beginnings of her plan. She knew this wouldn't be as simple as yelling or filing for divorce. After all, if she wanted Adam to truly suffer the consequences of his betrayal, she had to think bigger, much bigger. She recalled a conversation they'd once had about Adam's obsession with climbing the corporate ladder, how he prided himself on being the youngest associate at the firm to land major accounts. He boasted about the performance bonuses that would soon roll in, the recognition from top-tier management, and the eventual path to partner status. Lisa realized that if Adam cherished anything as much as his own freedom, it was his career success. Standing in the darkness of their living room, Lisa started formulating the rudiments of a scheme, something slow, methodical, and utterly devastating. She couldn't confront him directly yet, That would only drive him to hide the affair better. Instead, she would remain silent, gather evidence, and strike when the time was right. "He thinks he can make a fool out of me," she told herself. "He thinks he can flaunt another woman in my face without consequences. He has no idea what I'm capable of." Lisa's thoughts rattled with each passing second. Images swirling of Adam's triumphant grins at social events, the co-workers' flirty texts, that vile sense of entitlement he'd displayed whenever. She questioned him. But she had to be strategic. No rash moves. If she lost her composure, Adam might catch on and cover his tracks. So when Adam finally stumbled into bed, slurring a half-hearted apology for being late from a work dinner, Lisa merely nodded and pretended to doze off. Beneath the sheets, though, her heart pounded violently. She was wide awake, meticulously planning how to dismantle his world. If Adam could break the vows they had forged on that sunny day of promise, Lisa would ensure that the cost of his betrayal went far beyond a few heated arguments. He wouldn't just feel her anger, he would witness his future disintegrate, piece by irretrievable piece. By sunrise the next morning, Lisa was already huddled over a steaming cup of coffee at the kitchen table, eyes puffy from a restless night. She replayed every detail of Adam's affair in her mind, remembering how the evidence she'd stumbled upon, those emails and suspicious receipts, had shattered her illusions. For the first time since their marriage began, Lisa felt a sharpened sense of resolve. The heartbreak still throbbed, but beneath it burned a slow, menacing fuse of anger. She realized Adam's betrayal was more than just a personal affront. It was a breach of the vows they had both sworn to uphold. If he thought he could break them without repercussions, he was gravely mistaken. Her laptop screen glowed in the dim kitchen. Tabs upon tabs open to everything from private investigator, websites to articles about corporate malfeasance. Lisa was no attorney, but she grasped the basics of building a case, especially in the realm of financial misconduct. Adam's career thrived on his impeccable professional reputation, and she had every intention of targeting that weak spot. She also scrolled through social media pages belonging to Adam's colleagues, searching for any snippets or clues she could weave into her growing tapestry of revenge. A single post or photograph might link Adam to suspect deals, or highlight who in the firm was most vulnerable to scandal. Realizing she needed tangible proof beyond personal suspicion, Lisa opened an encrypted note on her phone. She began cataloging dates and times Adam had claimed to be at a work dinner or out with important clients. Each line of text was accompanied by screenshots of his text messages, occasional selfies he had accidentally left on his cloud drive, or bank transaction records that hinted at lavish dinners for two. It was unnerving how quickly the puzzle pieces began forming a damning picture. That afternoon, she scheduled an appointment at a small, discreet investigative agency. The office was tucked away in a nondescript commercial building on the outskirts of town, a place where no one would suspect a respectable interior designer to visit. Inside, she met with a private investigator named Garrett. He was a middle-aged man with silver-streaked hair and an air of quiet competence about him. Garrett listened as Lisa carefully laid out the situation. Her husband's infidelity, her suspicions of financial impropriety within his firm, and her desire to collect irrefutable evidence. She didn't say outright that she planned to destroy Adam, only that she wanted the truth. But the steely glint in Lisa's eyes spoke volumes. "What exactly are you looking to achieve, Mrs. Sullivan?" Garrett asked, leaning forward. Lisa hadn't yet updated her last name legally. She still used her maiden name Bennett in business, but for all social appearances, people called her Mrs. Sullivan. Taking a breath, Lisa steadied her voice. "I need proof that he's cheating and proof of any illegal activities that could come back to haunt him. I don't just want rumors or he said she said gossip. I need documentation, emails, photographs, transactions, phone records. Whatever it takes." Garrett nodded calmly. "This won't be cheap or quick." I'm prepared, Lisa replied, pulling out a file of documents detailing Adam's schedule, probable times he spent with his mistress, and some suspicious financial statements she had quietly copied from his home office. These should give you a head start. He thumbed through the papers, eyebrows raising at the thoroughness of her notes. You've done quite a bit of the legwork yourself, he observed. Lisa's gaze was unwavering. Just make sure you cover the angles I can't. Before she left, they arranged a communication system that involved encrypted messaging and occasional in-person updates. Lisa exited the building feeling both anxious and empowered. The first block of her plan was now set in motion. She knew Garrett's investigation would take time, but time was exactly what she intended to use to her advantage. That night, Lisa made a deliberate effort to appear unfazed in Adam's presence. She even went so far as to prepare a simple dinner, pasta, al pomodoro, with a side salad. When Adam walked in, looking preoccupied and tense, she greeted him with a casual smile. If he was rattled by guilt, he didn't show it beyond a slight flicker in his eyes. Throughout the meal, Adam spoke mostly about work frustrations. He complained about a client who was dithering over a huge contract, how the partner at his firm was breathing down his neck for results, how underappreciated he felt despite putting in the longest hours. Lisa offered half-hearted nods, injecting small words of sympathy. She never once pressed him about the late nights or the suspicious phone calls, and that seemed to put him at ease. Perhaps he thought she had no clue about the messages she'd discovered, or maybe he believed his affair was too skillfully hidden for her to detect. When he finished venting, Lisa placed a gentle hand over his. "You've been working so hard," she said, voice gentle yet empty of true warmth. "Just remember to take care of yourself, okay?" Adam appeared momentarily touched, or at least relieved. "Thanks, Lee," he murmured. He used to call her Lily, a playful nickname, from their college days, but that softness had evaporated between them long ago. Still, the fleeting gesture of closeness served Lisa's plan. If Adam suspected she was plotting his downfall, he'd lock down his secrets. She needed him complacent, unguarded. Later, when Adam retreated to the living room to catch up on emails, Lisa slipped into the bedroom and quietly checked her phone. No messages from Garrett yet. She expected as much. Gathering evidence took careful maneuvering. In the meantime, she glanced at the meticulously curated chart of Adam's potential vulnerabilities. On that chart, she'd highlighted corporate fraud, extramarital affair, and possible unethical deals with clients. The more comprehensive her assault, the more thorough his downfall would be. In the days that followed, Lisa juggled her own design, projects with covert updates from Garrett. He would send her coded texts, collected more leaves for the bouquet, meaning he had found new pieces of evidence. Occasionally, they'd meet at an unremarkable cafe on the other side of town. It was the perfect spot, nondescript, bustling enough to blend in, yet quiet in the corner booths. One afternoon, Garrett arrived with a small, discreet USB drive. Sliding it across the table, he said, "Photos of Adam leaving the Magnolia Hotel, with a woman who isn't you, time-stamped at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. Also got a partial phone record log. Looks like he's made dozens of calls to that same number late at night. And there's more. I've got reason to believe he's aware of certain irregularities in his firm's reporting." Lisa's heartbeat quickened. "Irregularities? People might call it creative bookkeeping," Garrett replied, lifting his coffee cup to his lips. "From what I gather, Adam's boss pushes for inflated client numbers. If proven, it could be borderline illegal. Your husband's left a digital footprint that suggests he's playing along to keep his stats high." A grim satisfaction coursed through Lisa's veins. "Anything we can use to formally implicate him?" Garrett shook his head slightly. "We need more. So far, it's circumstantial, but I'm following a lead on one of his biggest clients, Redwood Private Equity. If Redwood's financial statements are doctored, it'll point straight back at Adam. Lisa nodded, pocketing the USB drive. Keep at it. Over the next few weeks, the tension in the Sullivan household grew more palpable. Adam's frequent absences, cryptic phone conversations, and half-hearted excuses wore on Lisa's nerves. Yet, externally, she played the supportive wife, occasionally texting him supportive messages about not working too hard or remembering to sleep. Whenever Adam read these messages, he'd sigh, as if heavy with guilt, or perhaps just annoyance. Late one evening, Lisa caught a faint smell of perfume on Adam's coat, the same alluring scent as before. Her stomach twisted, but she forced a smile as she helped him hang it in the closet, all the while mentally filing this fresh piece of confirmation that he was with his mistress again. She didn't confront him. No, confrontation at this stage would be too satisfying for him. Instead, she meticulously rehearsed the final steps of her plan. Once she had enough indisputable proof of his affair and potential financial misconduct, she would unleash her findings on Adam's professional world. There was a cruel elegance in the idea. Adam believed wholeheartedly in his future at the firm. He saw it as a golden path to partnerships, bigger bonuses, and lavish praise. To rip that away would be the perfect strike, a precise vengeance for how carelessly he'd ripped apart their marriage. For her part, Lisa was careful to maintain her outward facade. She continued to meet interior design clients, going the extra mile to stay cheerful and passionate about their renovation dreams. It served two purposes. It kept her professional life stable and gave her an alibi for any unusual comings and goings. If Adam questioned why she was out late, she could cite a client meeting or urgent consult. The irony wasn't lost on her, mirroring the very excuses he used to mask his infidelity. Still, amid the meticulous plotting, Lisa felt a pang of sadness. She sometimes recalled the night by the campus fountain, where she and Adam had laughed about the future, imagining a life of shared milestones. The sincerity in his eyes back then seemed so real. Was it possible that man had once truly loved her? And if so, what had changed him into this callous stranger? But those sentimental flashes never lasted long. The next moment, she'd remember the text messages, the lipsticked collar, and the blatant disregard for her feelings. The grief she felt would morph into a clear, chilling determination. He had broken their vows with the same recklessness one might toss away an old photograph. If that was the case, he deserved to watch the world he held dear crumble at his feet. One night, as Lisa lay in bed pretending to be asleep, she heard Adam shuffle out of the room to take a phone call. Muffled words drifted through the hallway. She couldn't catch every phrase, but enough reached her ears. "Yes, I'm alone. She's asleep. No, I haven't told her anything. We'll figure it out soon." A wave of adrenaline surged through her. Her plan was advancing, step by step, but so was his deception. Perhaps he was hatching some half-baked story to cover his tracks. Perhaps Sabrina, his lover, was demanding clarity. Regardless, Lisa couldn't help but feel that time was ticking, that the moment to strike was on the horizon. For now, she remained patient, letting Adam believe he was still outsmarting her. Little did he know, every careful lie he spun only fueled the quiet storm building in Lisa's arsenal. Soon enough, she would show him exactly what it meant to betray the sacred vows they once made. Lisa woke up before dawn with a knot in her stomach, the lingering echo of Adam's late-night phone call still spinning in her mind. His words had been muffled, but the tension in his voice was unmistakable. If he was discussing a plan with Sabrina or anyone else, it could mean that he was fortifying his defenses. She couldn't afford to let him slip away unscathed, not when she'd invested so much time and energy orchestrating his downfall. Her first move that morning was to review the encrypted messages from Garrett. He'd promised to dig deeper into Redwood Private Equity, a major client of Adam's firm, where potential financial irregularities might be buried. Lisa scrolled through her phone to find Garrett's latest update, a short note reading, "Follow the Redwood accounts. Something's off. A cryptic statement, yes, but enough to reignite her determination. As the sky began to lighten, Lisa brewed a pot of strong coffee and set about finalizing her interior design work for the day. She tried to focus on color swatches and floor plans, but her thoughts kept drifting back to Adam. In her mind, she played out the likely scenarios. If Redwood's finances were indeed suspect, Adam might be complicit in doctoring paperwork or pushing false data. That would be more than enough to destabilize his position. She pictured his world crumbling under the weight of exposed deceit, and the thought gave her a twisted sense of satisfaction. Shortly after 8 a.m., Adam emerged from the bedroom wearing a crisp navy suit. His eyes were bloodshot from lack of sleep, and Lisa suspected he'd been on the phone again in secret. She offered a neutral greeting, a cautious "good morning," and watched him pour coffee without saying much. When he finally spoke, his voice was hollow. "I've got a long day at the office," he muttered, not meeting her gaze. "Big client negotiation. Don't wait up for me." A year ago, Lisa would have asked questions. Which client? How important was the deal? Could they celebrate if it went well? But now she just nodded and mumbled a half-hearted, "Take care." Deep inside, she smirked. If Garrett's leads were correct, Adam's big negotiation might be the very noose that would cinch around his neck. That afternoon, Lisa met Garrett at their usual cafe. The place was busy with office workers on their lunch breaks, affording them the anonymity they needed. They sat in a corner booth, the hum of conversations around them providing a helpful cover. Garrett leaned in, speaking low. "I've found records suggesting Redwood Private Equity may have been inflating the valuation of certain assets. Not drastically, but enough that if the SEC pokes around, heads will roll." Lisa's heart quickened. "And Adam's involved?" "Potentially." Garrett slid a thin folder across the table. Inside were snippets of financial statements, heavily redacted in some places, but revealing enough. "See these notations? They match the handwriting style Adam used in other documents. Looks like he might have helped rewrite some figures to meet quarterly targets." Lisa flipped through the sheets, her mind buzzing with possibilities. If Redwood was under scrutiny for fraudulent valuations, Adam would be right at the center of the storm. "This is good, Garrett. Really good." She paused, tapping a finger on one of the highlighted lines. "Any chance we can tie him directly to an email chain or sign-off?" Garrett sighed. "Still working on that, but there's a rumor Redwood could merge with another firm next quarter. If that happens, the due diligence process will uncover everything. We just need to accelerate that exposure so Adam faces the fallout sooner." A wry smile curved Lisa's lips. "Understood. Keep digging." With that, she tucked the folder into her briefcase and parted ways, determined to weave Redwood's precarious situation into her revenge plan. It wasn't merely about Adam's adultery anymore. This was about dismantling his entire professional facade. When Lisa returned home, she found Adam pacing their living room, phone pressed to his ear. The blinds were partially drawn, casting diagonal shadows across the floor. He looked agitated, hair slightly disheveled, as though he'd run anxious hands through it repeatedly. "No, I need you to fix this," he hissed into the phone. "I can't have Redwood's discrepancies blow up in my face. Talk to the team. I don't care how you do it. Just handle it." Lisa hovered near the doorway, staying out of Adam's line of sight. It was rare for him to speak so openly about work at home. Usually he played everything close to the vest, even when they were on good terms. Now, desperation oozed from his voice. She waited until he ended the call, then cleared her throat softly, stepping into the living room with a small smile. "Everything okay?" she asked. Adam turned around, startled. His expression flattened instantly, as though he'd slapped on a mask to hide his panic. "It's fine, just a client issue." He flopped onto the couch, sighing heavily. "The Redwood account is becoming a real headache, that's all." Lisa took a seat across from him. She considered pushing for details, but decided to be more subtle. Is there anything I can do? I mean, I know I'm not a finance guru, but if you need support? She let the sentence drift, as if offering emotional comfort. Adam scoffed. Support won't fix it. The numbers aren't adding up like we predicted. Could ruin the entire quarter. She observed the worry etched on his face. A part of her almost felt sorry, but the memory of those incriminating emails flashed in, her mind fanning her anger. He had humiliated her with his affair. He had belittled their marriage vows. Any pity she felt dissolved quickly. I'm sure you'll figure it out, she said calmly, fighting the urge to reveal she already knew far more than he suspected. You always do. Adam didn't respond, just stared at the silent television in front of him, lost in thought. In the days that followed, Lisa watched Adam's behavior grow increasingly erratic. He stayed up until the early hours, poring over spreadsheets and business reports, pausing occasionally to send frantic texts. Sometimes he vanished into the study to make tense phone calls that left him visibly shaken. Lisa guessed he was coordinating with Redwood, trying to patch up whatever financial holes threatened to sink them. Meanwhile, Garrett maintained a steady stream of updates, each more damning than the last. One text read, possible link between Redwood CFO and Adam check shared accounts. Another day, Lisa received a short voice note. Got confirmation Redwood is under preliminary review. If the firm invests more capital soon, the SEC could dig deeper. It was all the ammunition she needed, but Lisa hesitated. She wanted the timing to be flawless. If she released too many hints too soon, Adam might scramble to cover up or, worse, lay the blame elsewhere. No, she had to keep him dancing on the edge, utterly convinced he could salvage the situation right up until the moment everything collapsed. To further obscure her involvement, Lisa casually asked Adam about Redwood over dinner one evening. She feigned innocent curiosity, claiming a friend had mentioned them in passing. Adam, already on his third glass of wine, offered a clipped summary of Redwood's challenges, blaming market volatility, incompetent junior analysts, and a host of other factors. Lisa just nodded politely, biting back her true thoughts. Outside of her revenge plot, Lisa still juggled her design projects. She finalized a contract with a new client who owned a historic townhouse, scheduling multiple site visits. On the surface, her life appeared enviably busy and productive, an ideal cover for any unusual absences. If Adam questioned why she returned home late or left early, she simply cited client emergencies. He never probed further. After all, that was the same excuse he used for his own transgressions. One afternoon, during a break between meetings, Lisa found herself alone at a local park. She gazed out at a pond where ducks bobbed calmly on the water, an oddly tranquil scene amidst her turbulent personal life. She felt an unexpected pang of nostalgia for simpler times. Back in college, when she and Adam would snuggle on a campus bench, sharing cheap coffee, joking about the future. The memory felt so distant now, like a fragile photograph from another era. She shook her head, recalling how brutally he had shattered their vows. The flicker of old tenderness quickly gave way to the cold flame of vengeance. Her phone buzzed. Another message from Garrett. She opened it hastily, anticipation coiling in her chest. Found draft emails BT Adam and Redwood CFO. Mentioned financial cover-ups, enough to bury him. A rush of satisfaction coursed through her veins. This was the smoking gun she had been waiting for, the final link in the chain that would tie Adam irrevocably to Redwood's wrongdoing. A plan began to crystallize in her mind. She could leak those draft emails to a reputable business journalist, perhaps one known for exposés on corporate fraud. The news would break publicly, Redwood's shady practices would be under a blinding spotlight, and Adam's involvement would come to light as well. His career would be torched in a very public blaze, leaving no path to redemption. All the while, she still had the damning evidence of his affair: photos, text messages, hotel receipts, and confirmations from the private investigator that Adam and Sabrina had booked out-of-town rendezvous under fake names. If the scandal wasn't enough to ruin Adam in the corporate sphere, the humiliation of an exposed infidelity might do the rest. Returning home that evening, Lisa found Adam hunched over the dining table, a storm of papers scattered around him. He barely glanced up when she walked in. Without a word, she surveyed the scene: ledgers, spreadsheets, scribbled notes, his phone, blinking with unanswered messages. He was desperately trying to plug the leaks in a sinking ship, unaware that Lisa was the one drilling the largest holes. "Bad day?" she asked, her voice neutral. He rubbed his forehead. "You have no idea. We've got an audit coming up sooner than expected, and Redwood's in disarray. Everything is on the line for me. For us." He paused, then added in a feeble attempt at sincerity, "I'm doing this for our future, you know." The hypocrisy tasted bitter on her tongue. Still, she forced a gentle nod. "I'm sure you'll handle it. You always do." She left him there, drowning in a mess of numbers and deceptions, while she quietly retreated to the bedroom with her phone. The time for a final strike was drawing near. She typed out a quick message to Garrett. "Let's arrange a face-to-face. We need to finalize next steps." With the Redwood scandal on the brink of eruption and a trove of adultery evidence at her fingertips, Lisa sensed victory close at hand. For a moment, she let herself picture Adam's face when he finally realized the magnitude of what she'd done. When he discovered she had orchestrated his professional and personal ruination. It wouldn't wipe away her pain, but the thought of exposing his lies and tearing down the shiny facade he prized more than their marriage brought her a dark, undeniable thrill. Late the next afternoon, Lisa parked her car outside a modest diner on the fringe of the city. It was the sort of place people drove past without a second glance. No fancy sign, no bustling crowd. Precisely the setting she and Garrett needed to discuss the final strokes of Adam's downfall. The sky was a dreary gray, threatening rain, but that only made the diner's neon open sign glow more brightly in the gloom. Inside, the cloying smell of bacon grease and stale coffee greeted her. A lone waitress nodded as Lisa entered, motioning her toward a booth at the back. She spotted Garrett already there, sipping from a chipped mug and reading something on his phone. He looked up, eyes reflecting the unwavering calm she had come to rely on. "Evening," Garrett said quietly once Lisa slid into the booth across from him. "Evening," she replied. Her voice was low, edged with tension. She ordered a black coffee. She needed every ounce of alertness she could muster. Garrett didn't waste time. He leaned forward and spoke in a hushed tone. "I traced more records, connecting Redwood to suspicious asset valuations. It's enough to raise eyebrows with the SEC or any serious financial regulator." He clicked his phone screen, showing her a handful of documents, leaked emails and spreadsheets, each one more incriminating than the last. Lisa studied them, her pulse quickening. "And Adam's name appears?" "Front and center," Garrett confirmed. "Draft emails with Redwood's CFO, documents he personally signed off on. If these become public, his reputation will be obliterated." She exhaled slowly. The grim satisfaction was almost dizzying. "Perfect. Now, about the affair. I have those pictures you mentioned, right?" Garrett nodded, pulling a slim envelope from his jacket. Inside were high-resolution photos. Adam entering a hotel with Sabrina, kissing her in the corridor, even a candid shot of them laughing intimately over dinner. Time-stamped, labeled, unassailable proof that Adam was carrying on an illicit relationship. Behind Lisa's back. "Hard to talk his way out of these," Garrett said, sliding the envelope over. Lisa grimaced at the images. The pang of betrayal still hurt, but it also hardened her resolve. "Good. I'll keep them on standby in case the corporate angle isn't enough to blow up his life." She paused, swirling her coffee in silence. A question loomed in her mind. the moral line she was crossing. Adam had destroyed her trust, but had she considered all consequences of unleashing these revelations? People at Redwood would lose their jobs, some of whom might be innocent bystanders. Even so, every time she thought about stepping back, she recalled how Adam had trampled on their vows. If he'd had the decency to speak the truth or end things amicably, none of this would be happening. "Lisa," Garrett's voice broke the silence. "You sure you're ready for this? Once these docs go public, there's no going back." She lifted her gaze, eyes steeled. "He made his choices. I'm just making sure he faces them." Garrett accepted her answer with a slight nod. "In that case, you might consider funneling the financial docs to a journalist who specializes in corporate scandals. I know a guy from the Ledger Daily. He's relentless when it comes to investigating shady deals. As for the affair, well, the pictures speak for themselves. They could be sent to Adam's firm anonymously, or to Redwood's board, or even posted online if you want to go scorched earth." Lisa's mind spun with possibilities, each more vindictive than the last. "Let's start with the Redwood scandal. If the corporate meltdown isn't enough to end him, we'll add the affair photos. No need to show all our cards at once." They finalized a plan. Garrett would pass the Redwood files to a trusted journalist, ensuring anonymity for Lisa. Meanwhile, Lisa would wait for the first wave of fallout. Once the scandal erupted, she'd leak the affair evidence to key figures in Adam's professional circle if he tried to slither out of responsibility. They parted ways, Lisa driving back toward the city, headlights illuminating slick asphalt. Her heart thumped like a drum. So much was at stake. She told herself that the risk was worth it, that justice, in a twisted sense, was on her side. When Lisa arrived home, Adam wasn't there. She wasn't surprised. The Redwood crisis likely had him working overtime. Or he could be with Sabrina, fueling the flames of betrayal he believed were still hidden. The quiet apartment felt large and empty, the only sound a faint hum from the refrigerator. She kicked off her heels and set her purse on the kitchen counter, thinking about the next move. To keep up appearances, she texted Adam, "Hey, you'll be home tonight? Made dinner." An hour later, a simple reply came, "Working late. Don't wait up." Instead of feeling wounded, Lisa felt energized. The more Adam distanced himself, the easier it was for her to operate behind the scenes. She opened her laptop and pulled up a draft email, an untraceable account Garrett had helped her create. There, she composed a carefully worded note to the investigative reporter at the Ledger Daily, attaching compressed files with Redwood's doctored documents. She didn't press send yet. She wanted to triple-check everything. The next day, Lisa decided to discreetly gauge Adam's mood. If Redwood was on the brink of a meltdown, he'd be teetering on a mental edge. Early that morning, she prepared a modest breakfast of scrambled eggs and toast. Nothing fancy, but a gesture to feign normalcy. When Adam trudged into the kitchen, tie askew, dark circles under his eyes, she set a plate in front of him. "Morning," she said softly. "You look exhausted," he grunted, poking at the eggs. "Yeah, Redwood's financials are a mess. I'm doing everything I can, but the board's spooked. Investors are asking questions." Lisa sipped her coffee. "Is there anything I can do to help? Maybe just, I don't know, be a sounding board?" Adam shook his head, glancing at her with a flicker of suspicion in his gaze. "Why the sudden interest?" She shrugged, feigning casual concern. "We're married, Adam. I can see you're stressed." He paused, as if weighing how much to reveal. Then he admitted, "If Redwood goes under scrutiny, it won't just hurt them. It'll hurt us. Let's just say we've been creative with the numbers to keep the quarter looking good." Lisa's stomach knotted, but she managed a compassionate nod. "That's tough." Adam huffed a bitter laugh. "Tell me about it. I could lose everything." She felt an urge to press him about Sabrina, but decided against it. One crisis at a time. Instead, she quietly urged him to eat, then saw him off to work. As soon as he was gone, she returned to the bedroom, heart pounding. The admission he'd just made was more proof of his entanglement with Redwood's shady dealings. Later that afternoon, while going through her usual design tasks, Lisa's phone buzzed with a short text from Garrett. "Green light? Let me know." He was asking if she was ready to tip off the journalist. Lisa stared at the message. This was it. Once she gave the go-ahead, the Redwood scandal would become a blazing headline, and Adam's role would be impossible to hide. She typed back, "Yes, proceed." With a flick of her thumb, she sealed Adam's fate. That night, Adam came home earlier than usual. He looked worn out, collar undone, eyes darting around as though ghosts haunted him. Lisa pretended not to notice, keeping her tone light as she greeted him. He mumbled something about Redwood's leadership issuing a hush-hush internal review, how they'd fired a junior accountant for leaking data. Lisa kept her face neutral, though inside she recognized it as the first ripples of the storm. They ate dinner in near silence. At one point, Adam's phone rang, but he declined the call. When Lisa rose to clear the dishes, she heard him mutter under his breath, "I can't afford a scandal right now." His anxiety was almost palpable, thickening the air with tension. Ordinarily, Lisa might have used this opportunity to let him see her concern, but she reminded herself, sympathy was a weapon best withheld, a tool to keep him off balance. So she stayed quiet, carefully washing plates as the water hissed over her hands. The next morning, chaos erupted. While Lisa was browsing the news on her phone, she stumbled upon a breaking headline from The Ledger Daily. Major financial firm. Under suspicion, Redwood Private Equity's questionable valuations exposed. Skimming the article, she spotted references to unverified internal documents, email correspondences, and potential collusion with senior associates. They didn't name Adam outright, but the suggestion was clear enough that anyone at his firm would recognize the details. Lisa's chest tightened with triumphant nerves. This was the first domino. Adam would see it. Redwood's entire board would scramble, and the marketplace would buzz with speculation. She hurried to check her phone. No messages from Adam yet. Probably he was in crisis mode at the office. Sure. Enough. By midday, Adam called her. His voice trembled, laced with near panic. "Lisa, turn on the news. Redwood just got hit by a whistleblower scandal. They're dragging our firm into this. People are saying we fudged the data. I have no idea how this leaked." Feigning shock, Lisa gasped. "Oh my God, are you okay? What's happening?" "It's a nightmare," he groaned. "Senior partners are calling emergency meetings. There are rumors the SEC might open an investigation. If that happens, anyone tied to Redwood is at risk." Isai bit her lip, carefully crafting her response. "Adam, I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can do?" He let out a shaky exhale. "No, not right now. Listen, I'm swamped. I'll be late tonight." When the call ended, Lisa pressed a hand to her chest, trying to slow the fluttering of her heart. The plan was in motion. Garrett's journalist contact had delivered the initial blow with surgical precision. Soon enough, Redwood's meltdown would cast a suspicious glow on everyone who touched those fraudulent files, including Adam. That evening, the front door opened to reveal a pale, worn-out Adam. He barely mumbled a greeting, dropping his briefcase by the sofa and collapsing into an armchair. Lisa offered him water, but he waved it away. She watched him stare at the blank TV screen, chest rising and falling with shallow, uneven breaths. After a moment, he spoke, voice a ragged whisper. "They're investigating the Redwood CFO already. People are pointing fingers at me, saying I was the one who signed off on the valuations. If they come after me, Lisa, I don't know how to fix this." Inwardly, Lisa felt the flicker of triumph. Outwardly, she mustered a concerned nod. She approached him, resting a hand on his shoulder. "Hey, maybe it's not as bad as you think." Adam turned, eyes brimming with desperation. "You don't get it. This is everything I worked for, my future. It could be gone in a blink, and I'm not sure who to trust. Someone in the firm must be behind this leak." Lisa felt a pang of irony. If only he knew the leak was orchestrated by his own wife. "I'm here," she said softly, forcing her tone to sound supportive. "Just keep your head up." He searched her gaze, perhaps looking for blame or suspicion. But all he found was the same placid expression Lisa had perfected over weeks of duplicity. Finally, he sighed, burying his face in his hands. Lisa lingered a moment longer, letting his misery seep in. She then retreated to the kitchen under the guise of preparing dinner. Alone, she shut her eyes and leaned against the counter, her mind spinning with the success of this first strike. Redwood was on the defensive, Adam was cornered, and soon the scandal would escalate. The next part of her plan, the affair revelation, hovered like a loaded pistol. All she had to do was pull the trigger at the perfect moment. In the hush of the evening, she quietly tapped out a message to Garrett. "Headline out. He's panicking. We'll keep you posted." Then she glanced back at Adam, shoulders slumped, in defeat. A complex swirl of emotions coursed through her, lingering hurt, fierce anger, and a glint of cold satisfaction. The vow he had broken, she was now avenging. One step at a time. Lisa spent the next few days watching Adam unravel before her eyes. He appeared torn between battling the Redwood scandal at the office and waging an internal war against the whispers he could no longer ignore. Every night, he'd collapse onto the living room couch, flipping aimlessly through TV channels without absorbing a single thing. His phone never stopped buzzing with frantic calls from co-workers or terse messages from top management demanding answers. In the mornings, Lisa maintained her mild facade. She prepared a simple breakfast, offered a supportive ear, and responded with understanding nods whenever Adam muttered about Redwood's doomsday scenario. But behind that calm front, she kept a meticulous record of each anxious revelation he let slip, further confirmation that her plan was working. The Redwood meltdown was intensifying, and Adam was smack in the middle. Meanwhile, Garrett's texts provided a steady drumbeat of updates from the outside. The journalist at the Ledger Daily continued his investigation, unearthing more compromised data from Redwood's hidden ledgers. Rumors of a formal inquiry by the SEC were growing. Shareholders threatened to pull their investments, fueling Redwood's desperation to patch holes. Lisa knew it was only a matter of time before Redwood's executives pointed fingers at Adam to save themselves. One late afternoon, Lisa dropped by a sunlit cafe near her latest design client's home. The space was a burst of cheerful colors, turquoise chairs, bright yellow walls, an ironic contrast to the turmoil swirling in her personal life. She took a seat at a small corner table, phone in hand, scanning her email for Garrett's latest intel. Sure enough, a message from him glowed in her inbox. "We have at least 2 Redwood execs claiming Adam encouraged creative math. Combine. That with the CFO's records and it's a done deal. Let me know how you want to proceed on your end." Lisa sipped her latte, heart thumping. This was the validation she needed. The Redwood fiasco was tightening like a noose, and Adam stood to be among its first casualties. However, she reminded herself that her mission wasn't just about Redwood's downfall, but also about the personal betrayal Adam had inflicted. The corporate collapse would tarnish his career, yes, but the affair exposure would be the final nail in his coffin, turning him into a pariah among his peers, the unfaithful husband whose ambition was fueled not only by unethical deals, but also by marital treachery. She stared at her phone a moment longer, hesitating. There was a part of her, buried deeply under layers of anger, that questioned whether she might be pushing this too far. The Redwood meltdown would wreck more than just Adam. Innocent employees, support staff, interns who had nothing to do with the shady deals could lose their livelihoods. In a different world, that thought might have swayed her, but all she had to do was recall the months of Adam's deception, the heartbreak she'd suffered, and the picture of him sneaking around with Sabrina. That flash of pity hardened into resolve. She had set this collision course in motion, and now she intended to see it through. Back at home that evening, Lisa found Adam hunched over his laptop at the kitchen table. Glancing at the screen, she noticed spreadsheets with color-coded cells, a swirl of lines and columns that looked suspiciously like Redwood's financial data. Anxiety practically rolled off him in waves. She approached quietly. "Working on Redwood stuff again?" He rubbed the bridge of his nose. "It's never ending. The firm expects me to salvage something, anything. They want me to prove we're not culpable. But Redwood's CFO is basically AWOL, and the allegations of fraud keep piling up." Lisa took a slow breath. "Is your boss giving you any support?" Adam's jaw clenched. "Support? More like preparing me to be their scapegoat if an investigation lands. I'm stuck trying to re-verify numbers we all knew were inflated. The partners act like I'm the only one who signed off." "Can't you show them those emails from Redwood's CFO instructing the changes?" she ventured, feigning innocence. He gave her a sharp look, as if suspicious she knew too much. Then his gaze shifted away, guilt flickering. "That CFO never wrote explicit instructions," he murmured. "At least not in any official capacity. It's all insinuation. Nothing I can prove without incriminating myself." Lisa laid a gentle hand on his shoulder. His tension radiated through her palm. If Adam suspected she had orchestrated the leak, he didn't show it yet. He just seemed trapped and desperate. "Maybe the truth should come out," she said softly, testing his reaction. "Better than going down for something you didn't start." Adam's eyes flashed. "I can't just throw Redwood under the bus. If the firm thinks I'm disloyal, they'll sever ties immediately. My entire career ends." Lisa withdrew her hand, stepping back. "Right. Of course. Well, you know I'm here if you need me." She forced a sympathetic smile before drifting away, leaving him to wrestle with the quicksand he had helped create. Later that night, she sat alone in the bedroom, staring at the folder containing proof of Adam's affair. She flipped through the photographs. Adam and Sabrina hugging in a dimly lit hallway, their silhouettes pressed close. A second shot capturing them exiting a romantic restaurant, hands entwined. In one image, Sabrina wore a striking red dress, her face illuminated by a street lamp, capturing a moment of genuine laughter. Adam looked smitten. The sight ignited a fresh wave of bitterness in Lisa. She had never confronted him directly, had never let the words "I know you're cheating" pass her lips, because that confrontation would yield no satisfaction. Instead, she wanted to reveal the affair on her own terms, just as he'd been forced to confront the Redwood scandal. Slowly, meticulously, she prepared her method of exposure, perhaps an anonymous letter to the firm's human resources, CCing the senior partners. Or maybe she'd opt for something more dramatic, an untraceable email blast to every contact on Adam's phone, including close friends and family, with the photos attached. The possibilities felt endless, each representing a carefully honed. Barb aimed straight at Adam's sense of pride. Before drifting to sleep, she typed a short message to Garrett. "We're nearly there. Redwood meltdown is prime. Prep me a secure channel for the affair leak. I'll decide the final approach soon." The next morning, Lisa awakened to frantic footsteps outside the bedroom. She threw on a robe and found Adam in the hallway, phone in hand, looking panicked. He mouthed SEC at her, then ducked into his study and slammed the door. Through the thin walls, she heard the muffled tone of an urgent conversation. Words like subpoena and cooperate filtered through, but not enough to piece together the full exchange. When Adam finally emerged, pale and shaken. Lisa forced an anxious expression. "Adam, what is it?" He seemed almost too stunned to speak. "The SEC has officially launched a preliminary inquiry into Redwood. They want to review every associate's communications, including mine." Lisa widened her eyes in mock concern. "But if you've done nothing wrong, that should clear you, right?" His laugh was dry, hollow. "I wish it were that simple. We all played a role in pushing Redwood's performance numbers. If they dig deep enough, they'll find my emails." She pretended to be uncertain, hugging herself as though worried for him. Inside, she congratulated Garrett. Their well-timed leak had rattled Redwood so thoroughly that federal agencies were diving in. Just then, Adam's phone rang again. He glanced at the screen and grimaced. "I have to take this," he muttered, walking away. Lisa watched him retreat, her mind ablaze with calculations. If the SEC was stepping in, Adam's collapse might come even faster than she expected. That left only one unanswered question: precisely when and how to unleash the affair evidence. As the day wore on, Lisa went about her design work with a sense of near euphoria. Over lunch, she couldn't help glancing at her phone every few minutes, awaiting fresh updates. By mid-afternoon, Garrett sent her a cryptic but telling text. "Press coverage intensifying. Redwood top brass in crisis. Expect their scapegoat soon." She read the message and smiled grimly. Adam was that scapegoat. The firm would undoubtedly blame the entire Redwood fiasco on him, leaving him exposed to lawsuits, termination, maybe even a ban from practicing finance. She pictured him clearing out his desk in shame, while Sabrina realized she'd hitched her wagon to a doomed horse. The image felt like vindication, yet a subtle twinge tugged at Lisa's chest. There was no going back once she moved forward with revealing the affair. Could part of her still cling to a faint hope that Adam would break down, confess, and beg forgiveness? She doubted it. His pride ran too deep. If he truly cared for their marriage, he wouldn't have shattered it so brazenly. The vow he broke was the vow she intended to avenge. That evening, she found Adam in the living room, hunched over his laptop. Papers and sticky notes sprawled across the coffee table, each one scrawled with frenzied calculations. He barely acknowledged her entrance, too immersed in the frantic attempt to salvage Redwood's numbers. "Lisa," he said at last, voice trembling with frustration. "The firm is telling me to figure out a narrative that pins all questionable decisions on Redwood's CFO. They want me to draft a statement claiming I was only following instructions. I'm not even sure it's legal." She moved closer, resting a hand on the back of the couch. "If you do that, won't you also be admitting you participated?" Adam's eyes flickered. Yes, but I can't see another way out." Her heart hammered. She recognized that he was near the end of his rope. "Then maybe it's time to consider the cost of lying versus the cost of telling the truth," she said gently. Adam said nothing. He closed his eyes, rubbed his temples, and cursed under his breath. The floor beneath him was crumbling, yet he clung to the hope that some last-minute miracle might spare him. Little did he know, Lisa was about to detonate the final bomb. Barawesan, night. After Adam passed out from sheer exhaustion on the couch, Lisa retrieved the envelope of affair evidence from her nightstand. She scanned the photos, each one a testament to his betrayal. The pang of old hurt mixed with triumphant adrenaline as she thought of distributing them. She pictured Adam's co-workers opening their inbox to see him locked in an embrace with Sabrina, timestamps proving it was during work trips. The humiliation would be instantaneous and irreversible. Slowly, she pulled out her phone and opened the secure chat Garrett had set up. The time had come. She composed a brief message, stating that she had the final content to leak: photos, hotel receipts, text messages. She asked Garrett to coordinate with whichever channel would deliver the maximum impact. Then she typed the words that would seal Adam's personal ruin. "I'm ready. Let's expose the affair." Hovering over the send button, Lisa paused, her mind flicking back to simpler days. The wedding aisle, the shared laughter at that campus fountain, the love that once tied them so tightly. But the recollection merely fanned the flames of betrayal. Adam had taken those vows and tossed them aside like worthless paper. In turn, she'd make sure his entire future went up in smoke. She pressed send. The message left her phone in an instant, carrying with it the final stroke of vengeance. On the couch, Adam slept fitfully, oblivious to the storm about to break overhead. And Lisa, her heart pounding, slipped the envelope back into its hiding place. Her breath trembled, but she reminded herself that his choices had set this path in motion. All she had done was ensure he wouldn't walk away unscathed. Adam woke the next morning to the shrill ringtone of his phone, a merciless alarm cutting through his troubled sleep. He lifted his head off the couch cushion, blinking against the light that streamed through the blinds. The coffee table was still cluttered with spreadsheets and scribbled notes, silent witnesses to the previous night's desperation. Groaning, he finally answered. Lisa stood in the kitchen doorway, watching him with a curious detachment. He listened intently, nodded, and tossed the phone aside in frustration after a few short, tense replies. Then he stared at the living room, ceiling as if it might offer a solution to all his problems. "Bad news?" Lisa asked softly, stepping forward as if concerned. Adam rubbed his eyes. "The Redwood CFO was arrested this morning. Charges of fraud and falsifying documents." He snorted bitterly. "They're offering him a deal to name anyone else involved. That means me, Lisa. He might point the finger at me to save himself." I feigned a sympathetic gasp. "Oh my God, are you in trouble?" He shrugged, clambering to his feet. "I have no idea. My boss wants me at an emergency meeting in an hour." He snatched his jacket from a chair and ran a hand through his hair, which was tangled from an uncomfortable night's rest. "This is it," he muttered in a hollow voice. "Everything I've built could implode." Lisa watched him storm out, the front door slamming shut behind him. Though part of her felt a distant sympathy. Once upon a time, this was the man she adored. Her resolve didn't waver. The Redwood meltdown was exactly what she had orchestrated. A well-laid trap now, snapping shut on Adam's ambitions. A swirl of satisfaction mingled with a hint of remorse. But she steadied herself. He had broken their vows, demeaned their marriage, and she refused to let him walk away unscathed. That very afternoon, Lisa's phone buzzed with a series of short messages from Garrett. "Check your email. Leak done." Photos sent to Adam's firm anonymously. "Expect reaction soon." It had begun. The second prong of her plan, exposing Adam's affair, was already in motion. She opened her inbox, her heart skittering. As promised, Garrett had distributed the affair evidence, images of Adam and Sabrina in compromising situations, time-stamped in a manner that would raise immediate suspicion about Adam's so-called work dinners. A short email accompanied the attachments, something along the lines of, "To whom it may concern, your trusted colleague has been deceiving you." Lisa exhaled a shaky breath. While the Redwood scandal was a large-scale fiasco that threatened Adam's career, the affair photos were deeply personal. They would cast him as a disloyal, unethical man, not just in finances but also in marriage, completing the portrait of a man who couldn't be trusted in any sphere of life. She took one last look at the damning photos and quickly closed the email. A swirl of anticipation coursed through her. This was it. The final blow that would rip Adam's personal respectability to shreds. By early evening, Adam still wasn't home. Lisa guessed he was either stuck at the firm, battling Redwood's fallout, or holed up in some hotel room trying to salvage what was left of his reality. She wasn't sure which scenario gave her more satisfaction. The redwood meltdown alone had him teetering on the edge. The affair leak would all but guarantee a catastrophic plummet. Her phone rang around 7 o'clock, a call from an unknown number. She picked up, half expecting Garrett's voice, but was startled to hear Sabrina's furious tone on the other end. "You," Sabrina hissed, "I don't know who you think you are sending those pictures, but you've ruined everything." Lisa's pulse quickened, though she forced her words to remain calm. "I'm sorry. Who is this?" A harsh laugh crackled through the phone. "Don't play dumb, Lisa. You told your private investigator to mail the entire firm our photos. Thanks to you, the partners are discussing disciplinary action. God knows how many people saw them. My phone hasn't stopped ringing with colleagues asking if I was actually seeing Adam." Lisa felt a twinge of satisfaction at how quickly the chaos spread. "If you didn't want to be exposed, maybe you shouldn't have messed with a married man," she said quietly. Sabrina's outrage roared across the line. "He said you were cold and uninterested, that the marriage was basically over. Did it ever occur to you that he's the one who destroyed it, not me?" "It did occur to me," Lisa replied, her voice chillingly even. "But you played your part. If you're looking for sympathy, you won't find it here," Sabrina scoffed. "You're worse than he is. This scheme of yours. You've humiliated me, too." A measured beat passed before Lisa answered. "I didn't make those pictures. You posed for them, knowingly. Enjoy the consequences." She ended the call, heart pounding. It was the first time she'd confronted Sabrina, albeit indirectly. While Sabrina wasn't exactly a sympathetic figure, Lisa acknowledged the woman's. Anger was partly justified, but that was a risk Sabrina had taken the moment she got involved with a married man. Lisa refused to carry any guilt for exposing the truth. Night fell, and Lisa lingered in the living room, anticipating Adam's eventual return. Part of her braced for a confrontation, but hour after hour passed with no sign of him. She switched on the TV for background noise, flipping through channels, without registering the content. Finally, near midnight, the front door opened. Adam stumbled in, face ashen, tie crooked, eyes wild with a mix of rage and disbelief. Without a word, he threw his briefcase onto a nearby chair and glared at Lisa. She felt her pulse quicken. This was it, the confrontation she'd expected. "What have you done?" he demanded, voice trembling. Lisa stood, feigning confusion. "What are you talking about?" He closed the distance between them in a few long strides. His cheeks burned with fury. "You know exactly what I mean. The Redwood fiasco is one thing, but the photos? They're all over the office email. Sabrina's screaming about it to everyone, claiming you or some investigator set her up." She met his gaze coolly, ignoring the swirl of adrenaline in her veins. "Maybe you shouldn't have posed for them." Adam looked ready to explode. "Don't be coy. Did you hire someone to follow me? Take pictures? You and your righteous act? God, you set me up like a dog in a trap." A flicker of old hurt surfaced in Lisa's chest, but she steeled her expression. "You did that to yourself, Adam. You broke our vows. You lied to me. You let Redwood drag you into corporate fraud. All I did was make sure people saw the truth." His hand clenched into a fist at his side. For a terrifying instant, she thought, he might strike her. Instead, he turned away, pacing the room in agitation. "I'm looking at potential SEC charges, Lisa. My entire career, gone. And now everyone knows I was seeing Sabrina. That's what happens when you cheat on your wife and forge numbers at your firm," she replied, voice icy. "Actions have consequences." He spun to face her, eyes blazing. "How long have you been planning this? From the moment you found out about Sabrina, or before that?" Lisa hesitated, recalling the countless nights she'd spent meticulously gathering evidence, the frustration and heartbreak that fueled her scheme. "It doesn't matter when. The point is, you lied, I found out, and you're paying for it." A short, bitter laugh escaped him. "Paying for it? Lisa, you didn't just ruin me. You demolished our marriage. You've destroyed everything. She felt a surge of irony. You talk about our marriage like it was sacred. You broke that bond first. Adam's nostrils flared, and he sank onto the sofa, burying his face in his hands. You don't get it. The Redwood fiasco is bigger than, you know, if they charge me, if I get dragged into lawsuits, it won't be just me who suffers. People at the firm, shareholders, innocent staff could lose their livelihoods, all because you launched some personal vendetta? A streak of guilt lanced through her, but she held her ground. They would have uncovered the fraud eventually. You're just mad I sped up the process, and that I made sure your role was exposed. He glared at her, tears of anger or despair glistening in his eyes. You never tried to talk to me, to fix things. You went straight for sabotage. Lisa felt the tension coil in her throat. Talk? Were you talking to me when you snuck out at night with Sabrina? When you lied to my face day after day? Don't pretend conversation was ever an option. Adam fell silent. Seconds ticked by. Lisa sensed the heartbreak behind his outrage, but it was too late for remorse. He had made his bed, and her plan had orchestrated the downfall he had rightfully earned. Suddenly, Adam's phone buzzed on the coffee table, making them both jump. He snatched it, glanced at the screen, and cursed under his breath. More emails, he muttered, his voice quaking with defeat. Apparently the board's convening tomorrow morning. They suspect I was the one who greenlit Redwood's creative math. I might be fired on the spot. Lisa's jaw tightened, unsure whether to feel triumph or pity. Watching him unravel was the outcome she'd pursued, yet a hollow ache spread in her chest. She remembered the younger Adam, the one who held her, close during college finals when she panicked about her future, who wrote corny poems on napkins during their dates. That version of him seemed buried, replaced by this cold, arrogant suit who cheated and lied. She told herself those memories were illusions overshadowed by his betrayal. Well, she said softly, I guess you'll have to face them and tell the truth. He looked up, shock registering on his face. Why are you so calm? You've taken everything from me. Does that make you feel better? Lisa didn't respond because she wasn't sure how she felt. Instead, she forced a hollow composure. You need to sleep. You have a long day tomorrow. He let out a short, harsh laugh. Sleep? Right. The wife who orchestrated my downfall advises me to get rest. Perfect. With that, Adam shoved past, her heading toward the bedroom. Lisa remained rooted in place, her heart thudding. The confrontation had finally erupted, and it had gone much as she anticipated. Rage, accusations, a swirl of emotional chaos. Yet beneath her outward calm, a swirl of conflicting emotions churned. Yes, she had orchestrated his ruin because he betrayed her in every way that mattered, but had she fully prepared herself for the fallout, for how drastically this would change them both? In the quiet that followed, she heard Adam slamming drawers in the bedroom, likely tossing clothes into a bag. Perhaps he'd leave tonight, or tomorrow, or next week. The life they had shared was in tatters, irreparable. On the coffee table lay the remnants of Redwood documents, half-drafted statements, and receipts from intimate dinners with Sabrina. Artifacts of a broken man's illusions. Lisa turned off the living room lights and headed to the guest room, deciding to give Adam the space to rage alone. She pulled the door shut behind her, pressing her back against it. In the darkness, she drew in a shaky breath, repeating the mantra that had fueled her all along. He broke our vows. I'm making him pay. Even so, she couldn't completely extinguish the quiver of doubt. Tomorrow, Adam would face a board that might strip him of everything he'd strived for, and the entire firm now had evidence of his affair. He was on a collision course with the consequences of his deceit, and she was the one who'd set that course in motion. She reminded herself that he'd had countless chances to confess, to apologize, to choose a different path. Instead, he dug deeper into betrayal. Bracing herself, Lisa exhaled slowly, pushing away any lingering regret. The vow he shattered was once a promise of love, unity, and trust, and he had tossed it aside for ambition and infidelity. If that vow meant nothing to him, then the least she could do was ensure he grasped the magnitude of his choices. Lisa awoke the next morning to the muffled sound of doors slamming and hurried footsteps echoing through the hallway. She blinked herself into full consciousness, recalling that she had slept in the guest room after her confrontation with Adam. The events of the prior night came flooding back: the Redwood scandal, the leaked affair photos, the explosive clash of accusations. She rose quietly, padding out into the living room. There she found Adam in a near frenzy, hastily shoving files into his briefcase. His shirt hung half untucked, tie dangling around his neck like a loose noose. An unshaven shadow darkened his jaw, and the dark circles under his eyes spoke volumes about his restless night. Lisa hovered by the kitchen threshold, arms folded, her own heart beating a little faster. "Are you leaving?" Adam snapped his briefcase shut and glowered at her. "Board meeting. They want me front and center to answer for Redwood's fiasco. And thanks to your little photo leak, everyone's whispering behind my back. My phone's full of texts. Is it true? How could you cheat on Lisa? What were you thinking?" A flicker of guilt touched Lisa's conscience, but she quickly reminded herself of his betrayal. "If you're innocent, defend yourself," she said evenly. "Isn't that how it goes?" He let out a bitter laugh. "I might have a shot if Redwood's CFO doesn't pin everything on me, but he's already trying to cut a deal. As for the affair, the board has a strict code of conduct. They're scandalized that I'd compromise the firm's image." Lisa nodded, tight-lipped. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Adam inhaled sharply. "I'm coming back for the rest of my things later. I can't stay here." His voice cracked, just a hairline fracture in his composure. "You've destroyed my future, Lisa. Congratulations." Before she could reply, he swept past her, yanking the front door open. The sound of it slamming shut reverberated through the quiet apartment, leaving Lisa alone with the mess they both had created. The morning crawled by in tense silence. Lisa made herself a cup of tea, but it went cold on the counter, untouched. She scrolled through her phone, half dreading, half expecting a barrage of new developments. Garrett remained silent, likely monitoring the fallout from a distance. Sabrina hadn't called back since their heated exchange. Images of the past flickered through Lisa's mind. Adam serenading her with an off-key love song during their college talent show, that day by the beach where he scribbled her initials. In the sand, the early days of marriage filled with laughter and naive dreams. She squeezed her eyes shut, wrestling with an odd mixture of sorrow and grim satisfaction. They had promised each other forever, but the man who'd made those vows had broken them with such brazenness. The scale of her retaliation felt just, yet she couldn't fully suppress the ache of loss. Eventually, she forced herself to focus on work. She had a client meeting that afternoon. Life didn't pause for personal drama. If anything, burying herself in sketches and design proposals offered a reprieve from the emotional storm swirling in her home. Hours later, Lisa sat in her car outside an upscale townhouse, reviewing notes on color palettes and furniture selections. The client, a meticulous woman named Harriet, had insisted on a complete renovation. Normally, Lisa found such projects energizing, but her mind now buzzed with 1,000 distractions. She inhaled deeply and stepped out, plastering on a professional smile as she approached the door. The meeting proceeded in a polite, transactional manner. Harriet pointed at walls, asked about custom cabinetry, debated over paint swatches. Lisa responded on autopilot, her well-trained eye suggesting design choices while her heart remained tethered to the drama back home. Yet, ironically, Harriet praised Lisa's focused expertise, remarking how reassured she felt with Lisa's guidance. When the meeting finally wrapped up, Harriet's phone pinged. She glanced at it, frowned, and apologized for the interruption. Ugh, just seeing something about a financial scandal at Redwood Private Equity. My husband invests with them. Big meltdown, apparently. Lisa's breath caught in her throat for a beat. She forced a neutral expression. Hope it doesn't impact your husband too much, she managed. Harriet shrugged. He's fairly diversified, but Redwood's a big player. It's all over the business news. Some big shot might go down. Anyway, see you next week, Lisa. As Lisa drove away, Harriet's words echoed ominously. She had known Redwood's meltdown was trending in the corporate world, but hearing about it casually from a client underscored the extent of the scandal's reach. Adam would be at the center of that storm, likely facing a panel of unimpressed board members at this very moment. Pulling over to a quiet side street, Lisa checked her phone again. Still nothing from Adam, though she noticed a missed call from Garrett. She dialed him back, tension coiling in her gut. He answered on the second ring. Lisa, I've been trying to reach you. There's a rumor that Redwood's CFO gave the SEC your husband's name as someone who actively inflated valuations. She shut her eyes, exhaling shakily. So it's official then. Adam's the scapegoat. Seems so. And with the affair, photos now public knowledge in his firm, his credibility is shot. The partners are likely to boot him. The question is, what next for you? She let the silence hang. Garrett was right. She'd methodically plotted Adam's downfall, but hadn't fully considered how she'd pick up the pieces. The vow he broke led her down this path of vengeance, yet the cost felt weighty. Thank you, Garrett, she said, voice subdued. I'll settle what I owe you for the investigation. Then I guess I'll see where things stand. He paused. If there's anything else, like if this escalates legally, don't hesitate to call. Understood. Twilight draped the city in a murky haze by the time Lisa returned home. Pushing open the apartment door, she half expected to find Adam rummaging around, collecting his belongings. Instead, the place lay quiet as a tomb. She flipped a light switch, illuminating the stark, lonely living room. The redwood documents that once cluttered the coffee table were gone. Presumably, Adam had snatched them to face the board. She was kicking off her heels when the door flew open, making her heart jolt. Adam stormed in, eyes wild, tie undone, and a single suitcase clutched in one hand. "Oh," Lisa said, fighting the urge to back away. "You're here." "Just to pack a few things," he spat, stepping around her as though she were invisible. "The board meeting was a bloodbath. They pinned Redwood's fiasco on me, said I was the associate in charge who approved everything. They practically escorted me out of the building." Lisa swallowed hard, forcing herself to remain calm. "Did you deny it?" He flung open the bedroom closet, yanking clothes off hangers. "Of course I denied it. But it doesn't matter. The CFO's testimony plus the leaked documents, they're painting me as the ringmaster. The partners claimed ignorance. I got thrown under the bus." The sound of metal hangers scraping harshly filled the silence. Lisa watched him for a moment, her chest tightening with conflicting emotions. Part of her had longed to see him stripped of his arrogance, confronted with consequences. Another part couldn't help but recall the vow they'd made, through sickness and health, success and failure. She never imagined it would come to this. "What about Sabrina?" she asked quietly. He stiffened, not turning around. "She quit. Sent her resignation by email. I guess she's humiliated too. We're both outcasts, thanks to your proof." "You made those choices, Adam," Lisa replied, her voice trembling. "You had the affair. You participated in Redwood's lies." He rounded on her, face twisted with resentment. "Don't you dare pretend to be innocent, Lisa. You planned this. You hired someone to dig up dirt, to set me up for the biggest fall possible. Were you so vindictive you couldn't even talk to me first?" Her temper flared. "Talk to you, like you ever gave me that chance. Every time I tried, you pushed me away, drowned in your ambition, or you were out with her, lying to my face. He flung a shirt into the suitcase, glaring. Well, you got what you wanted. I'm ruined. I might face charges. My name is mud in this industry. Happy now? Lisa didn't respond. Was she happy? The swirling ache in her chest suggested otherwise, but she stood by her conviction that his betrayal had demanded consequences. She couldn't muster an apology for unveiling the truth. Adam shoved the suitcase closed, zipped it with an angry yank. He took a moment to collect himself, then spoke, in a low, controlled tone. I'm staying at a friend's place for a while. Don't bother calling. Whatever existed between us is over. He stormed past her, suitcase banging against the doorway. In a flash, he was gone, the door slamming shut with a finality that echoed in the empty living room. Lisa let out a shaky breath, half expecting to feel triumphant. Instead, a hollow numbness spread through her. The vow she once held so dear lay in tatters. She had avenged its betrayal, but in doing so had gutted every semblance of love or hope that might have remained. That night, she sat alone on the sofa, staring at the city lights blinking through the window. Her phone chimed with a news alert. Redwood Private Equity was now under full investigation, with several top executives indicted. The article mentioned an unnamed associate who had played a key role in adjusting the valuations. She knew that was Adam. The piece ended with speculation that more arrests could follow. Lisa shut her phone off and gazed around the silent apartment, the heavy hush pressing in on her. She tried to imagine the life she would lead now. No Adam, no illusions of a happy marriage. The old memories would remain just that, ghostly fragments of another era. A single question kept looping in her mind. Was it worth it? She'd executed her plan flawlessly, ensuring Adam reaped the whirlwind of his duplicity. But the emptiness that clung to her afterward was an unforeseen aftershock. Perhaps true justice never came without a pang of regret. Eventually, she stood up, tidied the living room almost mechanically, and flicked off the lights. In the darkness, she whispered to herself, "He broke our vows first," as if repeating it could somehow soothe the sting. Sleep came fitfully. Each time she closed her eyes, she saw Adam's face from years ago, bright, eager, full of devotion. Then it morphed into the bitter, cornered man who had just walked out. She tossed and turned, chasing slumber that never came easily. Tomorrow, she would awaken to a new reality. A marriage ended in spectacular, scandalous fashion. He had destroyed her trust. She had annihilated his future. If any victory remained, it was drowned out by the echo of a shattered vow, echoing in the space they once called home. The weekend after Adam's abrupt departure felt longer than any Lisa could remember. A dense hush shrouded the apartment. No more jumbled papers on the coffee table, no frantic phone calls at odd hours. Even the tension that used to crackle between them had dissipated, replaced by a hollow stillness. She spent Saturday morning wandering from room to room, picking up traces of Adam's presence, an old college sweatshirt flung over a chair, a half-empty bottle of cologne on the dresser. For a moment, she considered tossing it all in a trash bag, wiping every hint of him from her space. But her hands trembled, and instead she placed his items into neat boxes, carrying them to the closet with methodical calm. It was while sifting through paperwork in the bedroom that she found a small, forgotten memento, a handwritten love note, dated shortly after their engagement. The words were scrawled in Adam's bold handwriting, referencing shared dreams of a life they hadn't yet lived. Rereading it felt like stepping into a parallel universe. Lisa, sometimes I can't believe how lucky I am. Your creativity, your warmth. I promise I'll do everything to keep you happy. Our future is limitless. The naive sincerity of the note twisted her insides. She could almost hear his voice, younger and untainted by ambition's poison. Remembering how swiftly that promise had been discarded hit her like a punch to the gut. Yes, he was the one who broke their vows. But was their entire love story a sham? Or did he once mean it? She swallowed hard, folding the note and slipping it into a drawer. Perhaps it belonged in the same realm as all those illusions they used to share. By midday, Lisa felt the apartment walls closing in. She decided on a whim to drive north, away from the city's noise, letting the open road be her confidant. The weather was dreary, overcast skies threatening rain, but the anonymity of a highway felt freeing. Mile after mile blurred past. Memories of their honeymoon surfaced as she navigated winding roads. She recalled how Adam once joked about them, renting a convertible and traveling the coast, singing along to cheesy love songs. Now, the silence inside her car felt deafening. Eventually, she spotted a sign for a small lakeside town. Impulsively, she veered off the main highway, following dusty back roads until she reached a scenic overlook. The lake stretched out below, smooth and dark like polished obsidian. Thick pines framed the water's edge, swaying gently in the wind. Pulling to a stop, she got out and stood at the overlook's railing, inhaling the brisk air. A single thought kept circling in her mind. What now? She had orchestrated Adam's downfall with ruthless precision, calling forth the Redwood scandal, exposing his affair, ensuring he faced professional exile. And he deserved it. Every last consequence. Yet now, standing amid the vastness of nature, she felt a pang of emptiness. Revenge was complete, but the echoes of her life with Adam refused to vanish. Lisa sank onto a nearby bench, letting the hush of the lake settle over her. She considered calling Garrett, half out of habit, to see if he had new intel. But truly, there was nothing left to unearth. Adam's disgrace was already widespread. The Redwood meltdown had escalated, the CFO indicted, and rumor had it the firm was teetering on a restructuring. Adam's career in finance, if not ruined, was certainly in perilous limbo. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Sighing, she dug it out, expecting another news alert or a potential message from a client. Instead, she found a missed call from a number she didn't recognize, followed by a voicemail. She pressed play, and a clipped male voice crackled to life. "Mrs. Sullivan, this is Officer Green from the City Police Department. I'd like to speak with you regarding some allegations that recently came across our desk. Please call me back." Her pulse jolted, heart skipping a beat. Allegations. She replayed the voicemail, hearing her own name, the mention of the police. Fear flared in her chest. What if Adam or someone from Redwood claimed she was involved in corporate sabotage, or that her methods amounted to illegal hacking or defamation? Lisa quickly opened her call log and dialed the number. It rang twice before the same brusque voice answered. "Officer Green." "This is Lisa Sullivan," she said, forcing composure. "You left me a message." "Right. Thanks for calling back." "Ma'am, we've received a report suggesting you may have engaged a private investigator to obtain certain photos and information, possibly involving trespassing or unauthorized surveillance." Lisa's throat constricted. So Adam had decided to strike back, or maybe Sabrina had filed a complaint claiming Lisa's actions were criminal. "Officer, I hired a licensed investigator to verify my husband's affair." "That's not illegal," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. There was a short pause. "We're aware that private investigators operate within certain parameters, but we'd like to clarify some points. The complaint alleges that you conspired to place hidden cameras on private property. We're still verifying the details." Hidden cameras? Lisa's mind raced. Garrett had taken photos, but never once mentioned hidden cameras. They used standard surveillance methods, public spaces, hotels, following Adam discreetly. Could Sabrina be exaggerating, desperate to pin wrongdoing on Lisa? "I didn't authorize any hidden cameras," she said firmly. I had an investigator gather evidence of my husband's infidelity in public areas. Officer Green paused. Understood. We're in preliminary stages of inquiry. I'd appreciate if you could come down to the station next week for a statement. Lisa swallowed. All right. I'll cooperate. She hung up, her hand trembling. The thought of a police investigation, however flimsy, made her stomach twist. She replayed the confrontation with Sabrina over the phone, hearing the venom in her voice. Sabrina clearly felt humiliated, and if she was willing to lodge a false complaint about hidden cameras, Lisa might have a serious legal tangle on her hands. The next day, Lisa returned to the city, her mood overshadowed by the looming threat of police scrutiny. She called Garrett, who answered in a calm, measured tone. He assured her that he'd never used hidden cameras without permission. He was meticulous about legality. They might be trying to scare you, he said. I can provide documentation proving my methods were legal. Don't worry. Thank you, she murmured, relief flooding her veins. At least one part of this fiasco might be under control. However, the encounter rattled her. Just as she had forced Adam into accountability for his actions, Sabrina was now attempting to pin wrongdoing on Lisa. We're both in a spiral of repercussions, Lisa thought grimly, an endless chain of retaliation. By Tuesday, Lisa mustered the courage to walk into the police station. It wasn't an official interrogation, more of an informational meeting where she could provide her side of the story. Officer Green, a middle-aged man with a stern countenance, listened attentively as she explained how Garrett had conducted public surveillance, using telephoto lenses in open areas, capturing Adam and Sabrina entering hotels or restaurants. Nothing invasive, no illegal bugging or hidden cameras. When she was done, Officer Green nodded. All right, Mrs. Sullivan, seems Sabrina Clay may have filed an overblown complaint out of anger. We'll close the matter if we find no evidence of wrongdoing, but we'll keep you updated. Lisa thanked him and left, her shoulders sagging with relief. Out on the station's steps, she inhaled the crisp air, marveling at how quickly her life had devolved into police reports and scandal. Just months ago, she had been a dedicated interior designer and a supposedly happy wife. Now she was the vengeful spouse, dealing with the fallout of a meticulously orchestrated sabotage. That evening, she returned to an apartment that felt emptier than ever. Adam had come by at some point. His remaining clothes were gone from the closet, the last of his toiletries missing from the bathroom sink. He'd even taken his cologne, the same bottle she'd once teased him about overusing. Now, only faint traces of its scent lingered. A single envelope lay on the dining table with her name scrawled in Adam's handwriting. Dread coiled in her stomach as she picked it up and opened it. Inside was a short note. Lisa, you got what you wanted. I'm out of your life and out of the firm. Don't worry about me trying to come after you legally. I'm tired, and I've lost too much already. I'm gone. Whatever shred of care I had left for us, you burned it when you sent those photos. Maybe I deserved a fall, but not like this. If this is your closure, fine, but don't pretend we can ever speak again. Adam. Her eyes burned at the finality of his words. She placed the note down and sank into a chair, a swirl of relief and sorrow colliding in her chest. She had demanded retribution, and she'd gotten it. Was this the closure she wanted? She thought back to the vow they had exchanged, the promise of unwavering loyalty. Adam had trampled on it, but had she not set theirs aflame as well with her merciless retaliation? The lines blurred in her mind. That night, she barely slept. Every time she dozed off, she jolted awake, gripped by the memory of how Adam used to whisper, "I love you," in the hush of dawn. Now, the hush of dawn brought only loneliness. In the following days, Lisa tried to immerse herself in her design work. She visited construction sites, consulted clients, and scoured furniture catalogs. Outwardly, she maintained the poised demeanor of a professional at the top of her game, but inside she wrestled with a nagging hollowness. She found herself repeating an unanswerable question. Where does one go after turning their marriage into a battlefield? Every so often, Harriet, her design client, chatted about Redwood's ongoing meltdown. My husband says some associate at that finance firm got fired. Looks like their internal finances were a mess, Harriet exclaimed one morning, oblivious to Lisa's involvement. Lisa forced a polite nod, her stomach churning. She realized that while Adam's downfall had made headlines, she existed behind the scenes, the mastermind few would suspect. The anonymity sometimes felt like a blessing. She could move on without public shame. But it also felt like a curse, because she had no one to share the emotional burden with. One evening, after a particularly long day of client meetings, Lisa found herself scrolling through her phone again, searching for any updates about Redwood or Adam. There, hidden among the news blasts, was a single line about Redwood's CFO taking a plea deal, implying further action against certain firm associates might be imminent. She wondered if that included Adam. She set the phone aside, gazing out the window at the city lights. The vow Adam broke had once bound them in what she believed was unbreakable unity. She'd never envisioned she would tear him down with such precision. Yet here she was, alone and uncertain of her next steps, while he faced the shambles of his career and personal reputation. In her darkest moments, a persistent pang of guilt prodded her. Should I have confronted him, demanded a divorce, or tried counseling? But she remembered the nights he lied, the brazen disregard for their marriage. The flicker of guilt always surrendered to the certainty that he had chosen this path first. Late that night, Lisa lay in bed, staring at the moonlit ceiling. Adam's note sat on her bedside table, a silent testimony to the final severing of their bond. Part of her yearned to feel victorious, to savor the moment of punishing him for his betrayal. Yet all she felt was a quiet emptiness, as though she'd won a war but lost her sense of purpose. The vow he tore apart had never been just words. It was the foundation of the life she'd dreamed of. And though she'd reduced his future to rubble in retaliation, her own sense of self seemed to have splintered in the process. She realized with a start that while she'd fixated on making Adam pay, she hadn't truly prepared herself to live with the aftermath. She closed her eyes, recalling that day by the floral archway where they exchanged promises. In that moment, she'd believed in forever. What a fragile myth, she thought bitterly now. Forever only lasted until someone betrayed it. Outside, a siren wailed in the distance, echoing against the silent skyline. She listened until it faded, then let out a trembling breath. Tomorrow, she would face a new dawn once more, alone, but free from the lies that once bound her. Whether that was liberation or isolation, she couldn't yet decide. All she knew was that she would have to rebuild a life from this husk of broken vows and scorched dreams, one unsteady step at a time. Lisa awoke to an overcast sky outside her bedroom window, the faint patter of rain tapping against the glass. The air felt strangely still, as though the world had paused just long enough for her to register the weight of everything that had happened. She lay there for a few minutes, debating whether to even get up. In the quiet, she heard her own breathing loud and clear, a small reminder that she was, despite everything, still alive and moving forward. At last, she swung her legs over the edge of the bed. It was time to face reality once again, even if she was uncertain what form that reality might take. The vow Adam had broken, and that she had avenged, still haunted her in flashes of memory. How a kiss once meant intimacy. Now it reminded her of betrayal. How a gentle word once meant unity. Now it felt like a distant echo. Her phone buzzed with a news alert, pulling her from her thoughts. The headline read, "Redwood CFO pleads guilty, firm in turmoil." Lisa sighed. She knew the fallout continued, and Adam was likely enduring scrutiny as well. Though she'd wanted him to suffer professional consequences, she couldn't ignore the fact that Redwood's collapse would affect countless other employees, some of whom had no hand in the fraud. Her stomach clenched at the moral gray area of it all. She had sought revenge, but the fallout stretched beyond just Adam. Nevertheless, she forced herself to get dressed, pulling on jeans and a soft sweater. Her schedule for the day included another round of site visits for Harriet's townhouse project. Work had become both a refuge and a reminder of her ability to control something, unlike the chaotic swirl of her personal life. Stepping forward at work, the design studio where Lisa often met clients was a bright, open-concept space in a refurbished, industrial building. Floor-to-ceiling windows allowed daylight to flood the room, illuminating swatches of fabric and polished wood samples. Today, Harriet waited at a large drafting table, sipping a latte while flipping through a glossy magazine. "Oh, Lisa!" Harriet exclaimed, waving her over. "I've been dying to finalize the color palette. What do you think of these shades for the living room walls?" For the next hour, Lisa buried herself in Harriet's questions about paint finishes, custom cabinetry, and accent lighting. She found genuine solace in the creative details, letting the swirl of professional terms distance her from the emotional upheaval at home. But Harriet was perceptive, and eventually she peered at Lisa with concern. "You seem subdued. Everything all right?" Lisa hesitated. A half-truth or a breezy lie would be easiest, yet Harriet's tone was warm, not nosy. "I've just had some personal stuff going on," Lisa offered, letting the words land softly. Harriet nodded gently. "I'm sorry to hear that. Life has a way of throwing us curveballs, doesn't it?" Lisa mustered a tight smile. "Yes. But I'll manage." They finished reviewing the final design choices, settling on a sophisticated palette of calm grays and subtle blues. As Harriet left, she gave Lisa's arm a sympathetic squeeze. That small gesture of kindness nearly undid Lisa's composure. She realized how isolated she'd become in her quest for revenge. Outside of Garrett, she'd confided in no one. Still, Harriet's warmth was a reminder that life continued, that empathy existed beyond the storms Lisa had conjured. She inhaled deeply, exhaled, and cleared the table for the next stage, drafting architectural renderings. The mechanical nature of design tasks provided a soothing rhythm, each measured line a small act of order in a disordered world. Phone calls and loose ends. Later in the afternoon, Lisa's phone vibrated again. She glanced at the caller ID. Garrett. Her pulse quickened slightly. He seldom reached out unless there were developments. "Garrett," she said, stepping outside into the corridor for privacy. "Hey," his voice was calm. "Just checking in. Seems Redwood's CFO is cooperating fully with investigators. Adam's name comes up quite a bit in the CFO's statements. Not sure if that translates to legal charges, but it's not looking good for him." Lisa sighed, a mix of triumph and sorrow pooling in her chest. "I suspected as much." "And Sabrina's complaint about hidden cameras?" Garrett went on. "That's definitely a dead end. She's retracted it, or maybe the police realized it was nonsense." Relief rippled through Lisa's tense muscles. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I guess that means I can move on without worrying about a legal mess." "Right. If you need anything else," she cut him off gently. "I appreciate it, but I think we're done here. You did exactly what I hired you to do." A brief pause. "Sure thing. Take care of yourself. Lisa." When the call ended, Lisa tucked her phone into her bag, leaning against the wall with her eyes closed. A swirl of conflicting emotions battered her, satisfaction at Sabrina's retraction, combined with a vague hollowness that no victory seemed to fill. The visit from Adam's mother. That evening, just as Lisa was placing a quick dinner in the microwave, the intercom buzzed. She wandered over, half expecting a delivery. Instead, a familiar voice crackled through the speaker. "Lisa? It's me, Marjorie." Lisa's stomach dropped. Marjorie Sullivan, Adam's mother, had always been gracious and supportive. They shared polite dinners and holiday gatherings, and Marjorie once confided that she adored Lisa's creativity, calling her a breath of fresh air for Adam. Now Lisa could only imagine what Marjorie might have heard about her role in Adam's downfall. Heart-pounding, she buzzed the woman in. Moments later, Marjorie stepped into the apartment, wearing a dark coat that accentuated the lines of tension on her face. Her eyes flicked around the familiar living room, an unspoken acknowledgement of Adam's absence. "Lisa," Marjorie said, voice trembling slightly, "I'm not here to attack you, but I need to understand what happened between you two. Adam's father and we're in shock at everything we've heard." Lisa gestured to the sofa, encouraging Marjorie to sit. She joined her, wringing her hands in her lap. The older woman's eyes brimmed with concern. "Adam told us he was forced out of the firm, that Redwood's fiasco was pinned on him, and that you exposed an affair he was having. He claims you went to extreme lengths to ruin his career." Lisa swallowed hard, a flush of shame prickling under her skin. "He's not lying. I mean, he had the affair, and Redwood's meltdown was something he participated in. I might have accelerated the exposure." Marjorie pressed a palm to her forehead. "But why, Lisa? You once loved each other so deeply." The question stung. "He broke our vows," she said, tone heavy with the finality of that truth. "He lied to me for months, or maybe longer, about everything. His affair, his shady business dealings. I tried to talk to him, but it was like he was in a different world, locked in his ambition, and so I decided if he wouldn't face his wrongdoing, I'd force him to." A tear glistened in Marjorie's eye. "I know my son is far from perfect, but did it have to be so destructive? You could have left him, started over." Lisa flinched at the raw honesty. "Maybe I should have, but I was angry, hurt, and I felt I had no other recourse. I didn't want him to just walk away free, leaving me in emotional ruin, so I took matters into my own hands." Marjorie shook her head, sadness etched into every line of her face. "Adam told me, Lisa was my anchor, but she became my executioner. I'm not saying he's right or wrong. I never saw this coming. Neither had Lisa, truly. In her mind, she'd always been the calm, collected partner, never the vengeful type. Yet betrayal shifted something deep inside her. She gazed at Marjorie's tearful expression and felt a stab of guilt. "I'm sorry you have to see this aftermath," she whispered. "I never wanted to hurt you or your husband." Marjorie stood, footsteps unsteady as she moved toward the door. She paused, turning back once more. "I don't approve of how either of you handled this. I understand your pain, but you two have caused such destruction." Her voice dropped. "I hope one day you find closure, Lisa, because from where I stand, neither of you is free yet." With that, she left, the door clicking shut gently, as though it carried the collective sorrow of every moment Lisa and Adam had once shared. Confronting the void, Marjorie's words echoed in Lisa's head long after she was gone. "Neither of you is free yet." As Lisa sat in the quiet apartment, she felt the truth of that statement reverberate. She had orchestrated Adam's ruin, unearthing Redwood's fraud and humiliating him publicly. In return, he'd walked away from their marriage, leaving a void where companionship once existed, but the emptiness inside her refused to subside. She had proven her point. Adam's betrayal carried severe repercussions. Yet in her private moments, a persistent ache clung to her, a reminder that no measure of vengeance truly erased the love and trust they once had. As midnight approached, Lisa sat at her desk, flipping through design sketches for a new contract. The lines blurred. Eventually, her thoughts drifted to the future. Divorce proceedings loomed, though neither she nor Adam had formally initiated them. She supposed it was only a matter of time. Perhaps she needed to contact a divorce attorney, finalize the separation, in legal terms as well. Pulling out her phone, she scrolled through her contacts until she reached a recommended family lawyer's number. Staring at it, she hesitated. Making that call felt like hammering the final nail into the coffin. Yet, ironically, she also sensed it might bring the first step toward genuine freedom for both Adam and herself. She closed her phone without dialing, telling herself she'd revisit the idea tomorrow. The night felt too raw, too laden with recent heartbreak. Instead, she rose and moved to the window, gazing out at a city skyline brimming with distant lights. How many people down there navigated heartbreaks of their own? Betrayal, revenge, regret. These were universal stories, yet each one felt uniquely isolating when experienced firsthand. A sudden flash of lightning lit up the sky. Moments later, thunder rumbled through the air, and rain began to pelt the glass. Lisa watched water streak down the pane, rivulets of shimmering silver under the streetlights. She found it oddly cathartic, as though the storm cleansed the world outside, offering a parallel to the inner storm that had raged within her for so long. She whispered into the empty room, "Where do I go from here?" There was no answer, only the relentless drumming of raindrops against the window. Yet somehow the question itself hinted at a glimmer of possibility. She'd burned down the life she once had, yes, but new beginnings often sprouted from ashes. Perhaps the future held a kind of rebuilding that didn't revolve around sabotage or bitterness. Slipping back into the bedroom, she let the natural weariness of the day pull her towards sleep. Tomorrow, she told herself once more, she would take another step, whether that meant calling a lawyer or simply facing the reality that her marriage was over. She couldn't continue lingering in the aftermath of her own revenge forever, and so, with the rain as her lullaby, Lisa closed her eyes, determined to find a path forward. Despite the heartbreak, despite the guilt and the fleeting satisfaction of her triumph, she felt a tentative ember of resolve glow within her. Adam had broken their vows. She had destroyed his future as he knew it. But now, maybe, she could set her sights on rebuilding something new for herself alone. Lisa stood by the window of her apartment, watching the last remnants of raindrops slide down the glass. Morning light filtered through the clouds, painting the room in a subdued glow. The storm that had raged overnight left the streets glistening, puddles reflecting the early sun. A new day had begun, and with it came a decision she could no longer delay. Clutched in her hand was a business card for a divorce attorney. Lisa had taken it out 3 times already, only to tuck it away each time, as though the very act of dialing would finalize her acceptance of what her life had become. But after all that had happened, her methodical revenge, Adam's humiliating downfall, their irreparable confrontation, she knew that the road back to any semblance of their former life was gone. The vow they once shared had been broken, not just by his infidelity and deceit, but also by the ruthless lengths to which she had gone to see him pay. Breathing in, Lisa tapped the number into her phone before her courage could falter. The line rang twice. "Good morning, Hall and Green Family Law," a pleasant receptionist said. Lisa cleared her throat. "Hi, I'd like to schedule an appointment to discuss divorce proceedings." "Certainly. May I have your name?" "Lisa." "Sullivan," she replied, a faint tremor in her voice. They confirmed an appointment for the following week. The moment she ended the call, a strange calm spread through her. This was the final step, the end to any illusions, but it also felt like a first step toward reclaiming herself. A sorrowful update. An hour later, Lisa's phone buzzed again. She glanced at the screen, an unknown number. Her heart gave a small jolt, visions of Redwood's meltdown or possible legal drama flashing in her mind. Steeling herself, she answered, "Lisa? It's Garrett." She nearly sighed with relief. "Garrett, I didn't expect to hear from you again." "I won't keep you long," he assured. "I just thought you might want to know Redwood's CFO has cut a deal with the SEC. The firm's disbanding or at least being carved up by bigger players. A handful of associates are under scrutiny, including Adam." Lisa's stomach clenched. "So it's happening?" "Yes. From what I gather, the partners are claiming he spearheaded the valuations. He may face civil penalties, or even criminal if they prove willful fraud. He's, not in a good place right now." She swallowed, unsure how to respond. This news was exactly what she had orchestrated, yet it still felt jarring to hear it spoken aloud. "Thank you for letting me know." Garrett hesitated. "No problem. I get the sense that for you, this was never about Redwood, but about what he did to your marriage. Still, I hope you find some closure." After they hung up, Lisa walked to the mirror in her bedroom. She examined her reflection, eyes slightly red, lips pressed into a thin line, the subtle signs of weariness. This was the face of a woman who had orchestrated a downfall that went beyond one man's infidelity. It had contributed to collapsing an entire firm, leaving a trail of collateral damage. She whispered to herself, "Closure," tasting the word on her tongue. Is this really closure? A conflicted heart days passed in a blur of routine. Lisa poured herself into design work, meeting, with Harriet again finalizing paint swatches and coordinating contractors. She found fleeting comfort in the structured world of architecture and design, where every line served a purpose, every color a deliberate choice. Unlike her marriage, these creations stayed intact as long as each piece fit perfectly with the others. Yet each evening she returned to an empty apartment. A stale hush replaced the once familiar clamor of Adam's late phone calls or frantic typing. She had insisted on that hush by forcing him out. He had deserved it, or so she kept, reminding herself. But another voice, quieter yet persistent, asked if her vengeance had truly been worth the cost. On a Thursday night, she received a text from Adam's mother, Marjorie. "Lisa, I understand if you can't respond, but Adam isn't doing well. He might be indicted or at least heavily fined, and he's spiraling. I'm worried about him." A surge of conflicting emotion tightened in Lisa's chest. Guilt, frustration, the trace of compassion she'd been working so hard to suppress. She typed a response, paused, then deleted it. What am I supposed to say? She thought. That I'm sorry he's hurting? He did this to himself, but so did I in my own way. Ultimately, she closed the message without replying. Facing legal reality. The day of her appointment with the divorce attorney arrived. Lisa found herself in a tastefully furnished waiting room, a setting not too different from her design studio. Plush chairs, neutral wall colors, carefully selected art pieces. She breathed shallowly, nerves twisting her stomach. This was the last place she'd ever imagined she'd be when she'd said, "I do." Eventually, a short, bespectacled man named Dean Marshall invited her into his office. Stacks of thick binders lined the shelves, diplomas and certifications framed the walls. "I understand you're seeking information about filing for divorce," Dean said gently, gesturing for Lisa to take a seat. She nodded. "Yes. My marriage is beyond repair. My husband left, and I'm certain we can't move forward together." Dean laced his fingers. "I'll be straightforward. You'll have to decide on matters like property division, possible spousal support, and so forth. Normally, this is a negotiation between both parties. Are you two able to communicate amicably?" Lisa's throat tightened. Amicable communication? They'd soared straight past that point into sabotage and scandal. No, we haven't really talked. Beyond him leaving a note saying he's done. I see. Dean offered a sympathetic nod. In that case, I can draft a complaint for divorce, serve him the paperwork. He can respond, or choose not to. Typically, if he doesn't respond, you can still proceed. A swirl of dread pulled at Lisa's heart. I understand. They discussed timelines, possible disputes over assets or debts. Lisa explained that Adam's job was in limbo, Redwood gone, his finances uncertain. Dean scribbled notes. That complicates spousal support, he observed, but you can still address equitable distribution of marital property. What property? Lisa thought sourly. They had a few savings accounts, the apartment lease, but most of Adam's income had been tied to Redwood's performance bonuses, now worthless. She forced herself to speak calmly. I don't want much. Just a clean break. Dean regarded her carefully, then offered a quiet reassurance. A clean break is possible, but it takes time. You'll need to decide how final you want the settlement to be, especially if Adam faces lawsuits or fines. That could alter any financial negotiations. Lisa felt strangely removed, as though she hovered above the scene, watching herself handle a transaction that should have been heartbreak. She mustered a nod, thanked him, and left with a stack of documents to review. Outside, the sky shone bright with midday sun, mocking the heaviness she felt. She slipped on her sunglasses, walked to her car, and realized her hands trembled. This was it, the practical side of revenge. She had torn Adam's life apart, but she wasn't unscathed. She had to sign away the vestiges of what they once were, culminating in legal finality. Reflections by the waterfront later that evening, Lisa found herself drawn back to the waterfront near the old industrial docks. The city's hustle seemed distant here, replaced by the rhythmic lapping of waves. She leaned against the railing, letting the briny breeze wash over her. A part of her recalled simpler moments when she and Adam strolled along similar piers, joking and dreaming of the future. What future do I dream of now, she wondered. The vow they had shared was gone, its remnants dissolved into a bitter tale of betrayal and retaliation. She had done what she set out to do, made him face the weight of his misdeeds, but closure still felt elusive, drifting out of reach whenever she tried to grasp it. A few passers-by wandered across the boardwalk, couples holding hands or friends chatting. Lisa watched them, an odd pang in her chest. Once, she'd been part of such a pair, leaning her head on Adam's shoulder, trusting him with her every breath. She tried to recall the warmth of that sensation. Instead, she felt a hollow ache, like a phantom limb that no longer existed. Marjorie's words ring in my head. Neither of you is free yet. Lisa sighed. Perhaps time was the only cure. After everything, her righteous anger, her cunning plan, and the aftermath's lonely hush, she realized that real freedom meant releasing her grip on the past, on Adam, and even on the sense of victory she once craved. Standing there, she let her mind wander to what lay ahead. She would finalize the divorce, continue building her design career, possibly move to a new place, free of memories. It dawned on her that forging a new path would require her to forgive herself too, for the cunning, for the damage, for the part of her that turned vengeful instead of searching for a more constructive resolution. A subtle sense of resolve crept through her. Adam might always see her as the wife who destroyed his future. She had to accept that. But perhaps she could also become the woman who learned from her darkest impulses, who channeled her pain into forging a stronger, kinder version of herself. In the aftermath. A gentle letting go, night had fallen by the time Lisa returned home, the city lights flickering outside her apartment window. She flicked on a warm lamp, then stood in the dimly lit living room, the hush once again enveloping her. In a small box atop the bookshelf lay mementos of her marriage, photos from the honeymoon, an engraved watch she once gifted Adam. Slowly, Lisa opened it. She took out a photo of them from that day on the beach. Both smiling, sun-kissed, eyes bright with untainted hope. Her throat tightened, and for a moment, she let herself feel the sadness. Because for all the bitterness, there had been real love once. Laying the photo gently back in the box, she murmured, "I release you," as if speaking to both her memories and the grudge she had borne. Maybe she would keep these relics, or maybe she'd discard them eventually. For now, she needed this final ritual to acknowledge that everything had changed. Her vow once shaped a life she dreamed of sharing with Adam, but it no longer bound her. She needed to embrace the possibility of a future in which she stood alone, forging new promises only to herself. Exhaustion claimed her. She left the box on the shelf, switched off the lamp, and made her way to bed. As she curled beneath the covers, she felt a faint stirring of solace. The horizon of her life beckoned, wide and uncertain. But at least it was hers to navigate. Adam's fate, potential indictments, tarnished reputation, estranged family, was a tragedy of his own making, accelerated by her decisive hand. He had destroyed the trust between them. She had destroyed any illusion of innocence he had maintained. Now each of them was left to gather the remnants of what they had once dreamed would be forever. In the quiet darkness, Lisa closed her eyes. Her heart still ached, but for the first time, she sensed a glimmer of something new, an inkling that beyond sorrow and regret lay the chance to rebuild. It wouldn't be easy. She might stumble many times. Yet a gentle voice within whispered that hope could still be found on the other side of grief. Sleep finally descended, and with it a fragile peace. Tomorrow she would continue forging her path forward, one step at a time, each breath an act of letting go. The vow was broken, and the future Adam had was destroyed, but her own life story was yet unwritten, a horizon waiting to be claimed on her own terms.